Good morning.
Morning, Rabbi. Boker Tov.
Good order.
So did that demon, was that demon involved with Jonah when he was in the tree?
Maybe the fish was a demon. There's a demon going into you, and then there's you going into the demon. Ah, wow, it just gets better, Kevin.
I know, but I don't have any choice right now.
Connection is good.
Connection's good.
Baruch Hashem. Audio is off a little, Zak Shmolik. All right. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Pesachim Daf Kuf Yud Beis. We are going to continue to learn, let's call the esoteric Gemara. We left off speaking about behaviors that can bring about anxiety, that obviously one should avoid engaging in. We will speak more about evil spirits. We're going to speak about incantations that help us get rid of Ruach Rav, evil spirits that are connected to water. We're going to learn in this daf and in the next daf the statement of Rabbi Akiva that Asay Shabbat Chochoil Ba'al Tetzarech Labriyos. In other words, we always had communally various tzedakah funds. If a person needed to receive money from a tzedakah fund, then they took enough for 2 meals a day, but for Shabbos 3 meals. But if a person has barely enough, but they don't have to yet take anything from a tzedakah fund, even if they only have 2 meals for Shabbos. So Rabbi Akiva says, so then if you don't need to take from the tzedakah fund, other than for the 3rd meal of Shabbos, rather asay Shabbat Chochoil, eat on Shabbos as you eat on the weekday, but you should not have to rely on the community. We're going to have various instructions that were given by different great Tanoim. We're going to have the 7 instructions that were given by Rabbi Akiva to his son Rabbi Yehoshua. We're going to have an interesting machlokes between Rashbam and Tosfos, whether Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha was the son of Rabbi Akiva or not. We're going to have the 4 instructions that Rabbeinu HaKadosh, that Rebbe instructed his children. We're going to speak about threats that are posed by a bull, and this is perhaps an insight to some of the makings of our animal soul. We're going to be learning about some animal language. We're going to learn about the 3 things that Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yossi instructed either Rebbe, which was his teacher, which is unusual, or his son Rav, many other such instructions, and much, much more. We left off on that Kuf Yud Beis, Amid Aleph, all the way on the top of the Amid. Right, we began on Kuf Yud Aleph Amid Beis, learning about that which can bring about anxiety, and now we are continuing that the Misoichar, if a person will have one's blood let. And we're speaking specifically about letting blood for therapeutical purposes, as Rashi points out, as the Rashbam points out, which is something that's not common these days. But if a person is doing it for therapeutical purposes, v'loi moshe yadei, and they don't immediately wash their hands afterwards, so then mafchid shiva yom, then the person will be seized with anxiety for 7 days. And as we read at the end of Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis, the definition of anxiety is having a fear, but not knowing what it's coming from. Back in the Gemara. Similarly, the second line, the shakel maziyeh, a person who has a haircut, v'loy mashe yadei, and they don't wash their hands right afterwards, then mafchit tolasa yami, then they might become imbued with anxiety that will last for 3 days. The shakel turuf, if a person cuts one's nails, They don't wash their hands immediately afterwards, then they can be seized with anxiety for one day. And here the Gemara says, and the person will know what they are afraid of. It's interesting to point out that when these dinim are brought down in Shulchan Aruch, so there's another layer, there's another knech that's added to it. When it comes to, let's say, to cutting the nails and not washing the hands. There it says that if the person is learned, then they, God forbid, will forget their learning. And if they have nothing to forget, then they'll go insane. And the concept of shikha, forgetfulness, is connected to klipa. Actually, God, who is above time, it's impossible for there to be forgetfulness because you don't have the past and the future. Oh, it's already so far away from an event that you forgot. No, it is. So the closer someone is to godliness, the less there is forgetfulness. Everything that we're learning about here is a person connecting oneself to demonic forces, to evil forces, to klipa, which means when a person gets more distance from Hashem, that's the concept of forgetting Torah. And if there's nothing to forget, then the fear, the ultimate fear, we don't know what we are. We are afraid to be disconnected from God. That's the anxiety. If a person puts one's hands on one's upper lip, just for the demonstration for learning, so if a person has their hand like right underneath their nose, so it's one step away from anxiety. Now, there are different ways of learning it. Either this is not the cause, but this is an effect, that one of the symptoms of anxiety is that people put their fingers right on top of their lip, right under their nose, or again, this might be a cause. That's how it's mashma from Rashi, that's how it's mashma from the Rashbam, that a person getting into that habit, that person brings oneself closer to anxiety. Yada apusya, similarly, if a person keeps one's hand on the forehead, so then dargo l'shinsa, so then this is one step away from falling asleep. Now, this is a good thing. That means if you can't fall asleep, try it. Put your hand on your forehead, see what happens. We learned in a brayso, we are 6 lines from the top of the Amid. We learned in a brayso, that if you have food or drink that's left under a bed, even if they are covered, even if they are in a box that's made out of iron, ruach ra shoyla leim, an evil spirit will possess that food. And actually, we have an interesting discussion amongst the modern poskim. What about when you travel on a bus? What about when you travel on a plane? You actually have certain halachic opinions that say it depends. If you're going in coach class, even when the guy in front of you thinks they're sleeping, that's not called sleep. You can put the food underneath it. But if you go in business class, now with the flat beds, you have people that say that, and we should be careful to make sure that all of the food that we might be taking with us, we should put on the overhead bin and not under a bed, which might be in front of us. We learned in a brayso, a person should not drink water. Now, all of the Rishonim say one should not drink water in the dark. One should not drink water in the dark. Not Wednesday nights. Now, it's not what we call Wednesday night. The night of Wednesday means Tuesday night. And again, as we will learn at the end of Kuf Yud Beis on the base, that initially all of these evil spirits and demonic forces had more power, they had more dominion. And as time went on, as we learn al pi Hasidus, that all of the Torah mitzvahs that we fulfill, they accumulate, they are eternal, and they, yes, Achshir Dada, the generations get better, even though that people make failings, but for that there's tshuva. So the negative things that we do are only temporary. All of the good things that we do, they are eternal. So as time went on, all of these koichos had less power. One of the steps of them being disempowered was for them only to have power on the night going into Wednesday and on the night going into Shabbos. And we'll explain on Amid Beis why that is so. So don't drink water. Those nights they have power. No, Tuesday night they have more koyach. Friday night they have more koyach. So don't drink water in the dark. And the imshasam, here again, this expression, it means if a person, something happens to the person, it's his or her own fault. The blood is on their own heads. The pnei sakana, because it can bring about the danger. Now, what is the danger? Here again, it's not a tangible danger, but ruach ra'am, evil spirits lurk in the dark on water. And as we mentioned, even though when we learned before, we were speaking about a child holding water in a place where there's not that much water available. Here, there's something about water. They need to consume water. And when it's dark, they're not afraid. They live in the dark. All negative koiches live in the dark. Says the Gemara, and if a person is thirsty, and it is Tuesday night, and it is Friday night, what's the solution? So says the Gemara Lema, the first solution would be to say Shiva Koilish Amar David Alamayim, to say the pasuk again to Hilum Chaptes. This is not called healing again, this is preventative medication, which is permitted. Say Kapitul Chaptes that mentions God's voice over water 7 times, and then you can drink. Shenem, and as it says, now you're going to see that actually Al Hamayim is not written 7 times, but it's the first one, and the first one is the dominant one. Shenem, and as it says, the voice of God is over the water. Kael Hakavit Hirim, the God of glory thunders. Hashem Hamayim Rabim. Nachamot, Hashem is on vast waters. The voice of God comes in with power. Hashem behadar. Hashem Shover Arazim, it breaks cedars. Vayishaber Hashem indeed is Arzi Halavonoin. Hashem Choitzev Lahavois. That the voice of God cleaves, and it comes with chards, with flackers of fire. Hashem Yachol Midbar, right? Hashem, his voice convulses in the wilderness. Yachol Hashem Midbar Kadesh. That the voice of God, right, brings about Yachil, fear, trepidation in the Midbar of Kadesh. It frightens the hinds by Yechasoif Yoros, and it strips the forest bare. Imagine from the Koyach. And when God's voice is in the holy temple, then Kuloi Omer Kavod, everyone proclaims Kavod, everyone proclaims God's glory. And as the Mashal points out, and indeed you don't have 7 koilos on Mayim, but the dominant is the first, and it begins Koil Hashem al Amoyim, and count, you'll see there's 7 times the word Koil, and that voice, you connect to God, automatically you expel Ruchais Rois. Now the Eloi either means that you don't know the pasuk, or it didn't work. Some people, they can see the Ruchais Rois, so they said the incantation and they're still there. They're akshanim. So then then there's another thing you should say. And here we go. And like we mentioned before, that understanding these forces are to your advantage. Not necessarily to engage in them, it's ignoring the demons. The demons are good by being invisible. You don't see them. Something that is invisible has a lot more power over us. So knowing them and knowing their names is already, you're defining them, you're engaging with them. And here are their names: Lul, Shafan, Anigroim, Anirdefin. So these are the 4 Ruchais Ra'is. And you say, Ben Koichva Yosivna, you're sitting, or I'm sitting between stars. I'm sitting between stars. Like, what do you want from me? There's so many nice things around me that you can go to. Ben Belelli Ushemene Yozilna. I go in between both skinny people and fat people. In other words, like the Rashbam says, please go to someone else. Leave me alone. The Eloi means either you don't know this incantation or you tried it and it did not work. The second white line. So then another concept, that when there's another person with you, they have less power. They attack people when they are alone. So what do you do? If there's someone else with you, then nisare, wake them up. Now they don't have to actually come to you. They have to be awake. And you should tell this person, the lay, first, don't get mad at me. This the Gemara doesn't say. But planya bar planya, so that you speak about yourself in third person, your name, bar, your mother's name. So Maya, I'm thirsty for water. So the other person knows that you want to drink water. Their knowledge, imagine, connects with you, and it disempowers these evil spirits. And then you should drink. Now the Eloi, either you don't know how to do it, or you did it, and you see the Ruchais and it didn't work. So then Mekarakesh Nachtema Achatzba, then you should rattle the lid of a barrel on a barrel, make noise. Making noise will make it appear that there are other people with you. Trick them, and then drink. The Eloi, and if you don't have a lid of a barrel, or if that didn't work, so the final solution is nishtei b'midei, throw something into the water, take away the restfulness of the water, and nishtei gavald. And here again, maybe that's the source of pouring some of the water out. We learned in a Braisa. Lo yishta adam mayim. A person should not drink water. Lo min hanaharis, not from the rivers. Lo min hagamim, not from the ponds. Balayla at night. The imshasan, if you drink water, damay b'roshai. God Almighty, the blood is on your own head. Why mipnei asakana? And here we're going into greater detail. My sakana, this brisa gives you the specific name of the demon that's connected to waters in the dark. Sakana shavrire, the demon of blindness. That's the effect that it has. And the itzachin, if you're thirsty, maitakante. So interesting. For ruchai we had a whole series of solutions. For this demon, that won't work. You have to have something else. So here you have one of the solutions. There's a they share a commonality. If someone else is with you, Lemelei, tell the person with you, Planya bar Planya saw, that's your own name. Your name, Ben, your mother's name, Tzachinam, I am thirsty for water. And if there's no one else with you, then Lema, Iyul, and Afshe, then speak to yourself and say, Planya. You say your own name. Here also, your name and Ben, your mother's name. Amrali Imi, my mother told me that is the harm I should be careful of. I should be aware of. Beware. And now you mentioned the demon's name. But this is amazing. Listen to how you mentioned it. The name of the demon is Shiv Rire. So you say, is the har me Shiv Rire? Then you repeat his name. Every time you repeat the demon's name, you take one letter away. So you make him smaller. Mi Shiv Rire, Shavrire, Brire, Rire, Yire, Re, Ha. Amazing. Lahoy, maybe the Breslevers, they go in the opposite direction. It was when you want to get connected to something, right? You go Nachman, you get closer. When you want to go away from something, you begin with the full name, and then you step away from it. And you say, Tzachina Mayo, that I would like, I'm thirsty for water. And then you mention, because I would like to drink it out of new white kalim. No, you're drinking out of a naharis. You're drinking out of rivers. There is where the demons have more koiches, this shavride. But you're saying that you're really drinking it out of a keli. And the concept of a keli, and the reason why al pi Hasidus we learn a lot. Well, how does Netilas Yadayim work? Also, we're taking a part of Netilas Yadayim is to get ready for davening. But part of Netilas Yadayim, as we know, in the morning is to get rid of a ruach ra that's on one's hands. And the very fact that you put water in a keli, containment is the way you deal, gevura, limit, because a demon, like fear, we don't know from what, we don't know from where, we don't know until when. You're out without boundaries. Out of boundaries is also demonic. Wild. That's why many practices of the cult was to do wild activities, to do things that were not misudar. Say that tikkun is the antidote to demonic forces. So even putting water in a keli helps. And even if you don't have the keli, you mentioned that you would like to drink a water out of kalim, and you mentioned white kalim. White is taro, white is connected to godliness. Love him. Vite. Loiven ho'el. Back to the Mishnah Daf Sadik Tesamid base. Again, every yid has to have the dalit places. Yeah, we learn places. We don't paskin like the places, but we learned the places that it's one for the family, right? That's what we learned when we began the Spedic. And it's just like by Kiddush, not everyone has to drink. It's better for everyone to be toying from the wine, but one person's drinking is enough. Tosfos holds one family, the household head should make the Kiddush and drink it. But if he doesn't have it, it justifies for him taking wine even from the tamchoi. Now, every city should have two types of charity funds. One is for money. The money is given out once a week. And then people that are even more, God forbid, impoverished, then they can take from the food platter. The food platter is that they would collect food every day. Food does not have a long life. And they would give it out every day. But to qualify to take from the tamchoi, you have to be as a complete Evyan Lagami. Even someone who has to take from the tamchoi should take for the four places. Say the more pshita. The more says no, it's not pshita. Loy, it's needed. Afilu Rabbi Akiva. The Amar that he holds. Asay Shabbat chochoil. Make your Shabbos like a weekday. Shabbos was supposed to have 3 meals, unlike weekdays, which then we would have 2 meals. Says Rabbi Akiva that if a yid has enough for 2 meals for Shabbos, he should not take money from a charity fund. Eat on Shabbos the way you eat on a weekday, but So you would think that if a person doesn't have 4 koises, but if he would not have to take dalet koises, he would not have to take anything from charity. So here he should not take dalet koises. Zakmanei hachi over here for the dalet koises. What is unique about it is persuma nisa, that we are publicizing the miracle of Yitzias Mitzrayim. We are publicizing the miracle of Geula. So here, yes, we have to take, even according to Rabbi Akiva, even if it comes to that, take money from tzedakah. Says the Gemara Tanach of Elyahu. We learned in the Brisa of Elyahu Navi that Afal Pish Amar Rabbi Akiva say Shabbat Chochol Ba'al Tetzarech Labriyos Avol Oiso Hu Davar Muat Mitoich Beisoi. Going back to Shabbos, even if you don't have, make the greatest effort to prepare at least something special for Shabbos. And what is this something little, but at least it's special for Shabbos? So Mainino, Amar Papa, Chasa da Harsana. It was a plate, it was a dish made out of small fish, which we know learned is very healthy, that was fried in its own oil and they added flour. It was relatively very inexpensive. So even though, again, don't take money from the charity fund, but go beyond what you could to make epis special for Shabbos. And Kibbut Tanan, like we learned in a Mishnah, right? We have this in Pirkei Avos that the Rabbi Yehuda ben Tamer says, have a as kanamer. Right? We begin Shulchan Aruch with this. We should be bold like a leopard. We should have chutzpah of kedusha when needed. The kal kaneshen and light like an eagle. Rotz katzvi, we should be swift like a deer. The giver kardi, we should be strong like a lion. To do Hashem's will. Oh, I have no funds. You have no funds. You should be be chutzpahdik. Use these talents in an extraordinary way, and somehow you'll figure it out. You know, when I was a child, my father told me a beautiful story that Rabbi Yonasan Eibitz was a child prodigy. And once Friday, his father told him, go to the market to buy wine. So he says, okay, but Tata, I need money. So he says, you're so smart. He says, with money, anyone can buy wine. You buy wine without money. Okay, he goes to the market, he comes back, comes Friday night, the father picks up the bottle is empty. There's no wine. So his father tells his son, hello, there's no wine. He says, Tata, any father can make kiddush on wine. You'll be the chacham, you make kiddush without wine. Oh. In other words, figure it out and don't take money from charity, but epis make special for Shabbos. Now the beautiful, the top Tosfos says, right, that we know, no, we'll leave that for next stop. It's our next stop already. And Daf Kuf Yud Gimel, we quote Rabbi Akiva again. You know, the Gemara in Beitza says that all of the money we spent for Shabbos and Yom Tov is not going to be deducted from the money that was given to us, that was determined to be given to us on Rosh Hashanah and a Chanami, but not to borrow money, says Tosfos. So it's money that you have and you spend, all the money you spend for Shabbos, the money is going to come back to you. But to borrow money that you don't have, hostinish. And somehow the Gemara is telling us that if a person is very either one of these 4 middays, they can somehow manage to buy something even though they don't have the funds for it. Tanach we learned in a Brisa.
Rabbi, didn't we learn that there was a din in Shulchan Aruch that the Alter Rebbe says that you can borrow money?
Yeah. We don't paskin like Tosfos. You're right, Yaakov. I mean, we're learning Gemara. Yeah, correct. That's a big machlokes whether you should borrow money for Shabbos. One thing we're saying, according to Rabbi Akiva, is not to take money from charity. Another detail, not taking money from charity, this is a charity to whom you don't have to return. To borrow money, no one is against it. The only question is, if you'll borrow money, well, is that included in the Gemara and Beitza? That's the machlokes in the Rishonim. And we'll speak more about that, God willing, in the next daf. It's mamish, it's big daf, and it's late. Tana Rabbanim, Shiva the bottom, Siva Rabbi Akiva, Es Rabbi Yeshua ben Noi. This is a very important machlokes. So the Rashbam says that throughout, right, we know Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. So says the Rashbam that Rabbi Akiva was Kereya Choyo. He was a baldy. And they called the son, that's Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, the son of Rabbi Akiva. The top Tosfos here, he quotes the Rashbam, right? Perush Rashbam, the who, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, the Rabbi Akiva Kereya Choyo, as we learn in Bechayros, Babot, etc., says Tosfos can be. The Einanira. Giving nicknames that are not complimentary is something unacceptable. Interesting machlokes between, and therefore Tosfos holds, no, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha was someone else. The son of Rabbi Akiva is Stam Rabbi Yeshua. Let's go back in the Gemara. So these are the 7 instructions that Rabbi Akiva told Rabbi Yeshua ben Noi. Number 1, B'ni al Tesha b'goyva sh'ir v'tishna. Everyone that Rashbam says, don't learn in a location where people have access to you, in an exposed place, because people will continuously come and ask you questions. Now, of course, we should make ourselves, we should be in service of other people. But when you want to learn, you have to concentrate. It's learn in a location where not everyone has access to you. Number 2, don't live in a city. Don't live in a city where the mayor is a scholar. Why not? Why not? Says the Rashbam, because people that are Talmidei Chachamim are continuously learning, and they won't properly occupy themselves in the communal needs. Number 3, never enter your home suddenly. Even your own home. Guys, this is important. We do this. Before you enter your home, knock on the door, ring the bell. Don't, you're here. And like the Rashbam says, could be your spouse, could be your children, are doing something that they would only be comfortable to do in private. Honor your family's privacy. Next, number 4, don't withhold shoes from your feet. Outdoors in the public, always wear shoes. Always wear shoes, and especially al pi Hasidus, the whole concept of wearing a shoe is it makes us a little bit above the ground. So when you're out there in the world, we have a mission in the world. We are here shluchim, but even though we go out there, we should not become engrossed in the world. Shtei atefach hechet, and that is expressed also by wearing a pair of shoes. Number 5, hashkem ve'echol v'kayetz, wake up early to eat. Wake up early to eat means that it's healthier to eat, as we learned this also in the Gemara, in an earlier hour. Once for many hours in the day you didn't eat, then the food won't be as beneficial for you. And both in the summer, because of the summer, whatever heat does to the body needs koyach to counter it. B'chorev, same thing is in the winter, and that's really going to fend off sickness. This is a health tip. Number 6, this is the Rabbi Akiva statement that V'asei Shabbat Chochoil, never do everything you could not to need communal funds. Guys, we're not speaking about taking a loan. A loan there's no shame with a loan. We're speaking about taking charity. Make your weekday, make your Shabbos as simple as a weekday, but the altet tzarech labriyos. And number 7, gewaldig veheve mishtadel im adam shasha misachekes loy. Engage in business with a person who is enjoying good fortune. So if someone else has mazel, engage in business. Now there was the erroneous way they understood it, lachatchila, and then we have the correction. So Omar Rav Papa on the last piece of advice that Rabbi Akiva meant not to buy from him, not to sell from him, because if the other guy has mazel, maybe it's going to mean that you'll always get the worst end of the deal. That's how he thought, but that's not correct. Don't buy from him. But don't sell to him. Yes, he has great mazel. They become his partner. So it says the Gemara, no. But the Hashta, the Amar, we have this in Baba Basra, the Amar of Shmuel Bar Yitzchak. What's the meaning of the pasuk in Iyuv? That when Iyuv was riding high, Masei Yadav Beirachta, that you have blessed whatever Iyuv has undertaken. That means that's the pshat of a person, a good person with good mazel. That any interaction, everyone gets uplifted. Certain people, everyone ends up winning. When a person, when you see their mazel is going good, even if you'll buy from them, even if you'll sell from them, everyone will benefit. Kol hanoita prusa me'iyuv, when Iyuv was having good mazel, any dealings, Mizbarich was blessed. So now that we have this statement, says Rav Papa, afilu lemizban minei. Rabbi Akiva meant even to buy from someone. If his mazel is good, buy from him. Ulas abuni lei, and sell to him. Shop it will bring you benefit. Chopper dummy, weiter. Chamisha devarim tziv Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, one of the 5 ladder Talmidim, or 6 according to the Yerushalmi ladder Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. He told it to him when Rabbi Akiva was in jail. Rabbi Akiva was in jail and ultimately was murdered brutally by the Romans. He was in jail for teaching Torah in public. And so while he was in jail, Amaloi, the Rashbi tells his teacher, Rebbe, Lamdeni Torah, teach me Torah. Imagine the chutzpah. That which you were incarcerated for, do in jail. So Rabbi Akiva says, Eini milametcha, I will not teach you. And as the Rishonim point out, Rabbi Akiva was condemned to death. Rabbi Akiva didn't want to teach Rashbi because he didn't want the Rashbi also to be murdered by the Romans. Amaloi, im ein atam elamdeini. Rashbi wanted to learn so badly that he threatened Rabbi Akiva. Now, the threat was really a nonsensical threat because Rabbi Akiva was already in jail. But he told him, if you're not going to teach me Torah, ani oimer li yoichoi abba. Rabbi Akiva's, the Rashbi's father was like Avraham Avinu. He also, amongst many other talents, he was very close to the government. The government respected him. I'm going to tell my father that you don't want to learn with me. And he's going to tell the Romans that you don't want to teach me Torah. Now, what he meant is that I'm willing to master you. Not that he would do that, but he was just trying to express to the Rashbi, to Rabbi Akiva, that he's willing to go on Mesiras Nefesh. And Rabbi Akiva didn't give in. Amaloi, so Rabbi Akiva tells him, what you think you want to learn and I don't want to teach you. Famous statement. More than a young calf wants to suck. The mother cow wants to suckle. In other words, I also want, but there's a danger. Now, Rabbi Akiva put himself in danger, right? That's the famous story. But I have a right to put myself in danger. Rabbi Akiva did not want to put the Rashbi in danger. This all gives you a better understanding, right? Shabbos Lamed Gimel, that after they murdered the Rabbi Akiva, the hate, the sinah, as a tzaddik should hate evil, how much he hated the Romans. And all of that led to the story of the Rashbi later. Anyways, Amaloi, Rashbi didn't accept it. He says, you might desire more than I want to desire. You might desire to teach. But you know what? If the mother cow does not feed the child, the life is not in danger. It's uncomfortable. It's not healthy. It's in pain. But if a child doesn't suck, then the child will die. Umi b'sakana. B'haloi, egel b'sakana. Rashbi says, my life is in danger if I won't learn Torah. Teach me. Amaloi. So he began to teach him Torah. And what did he tell him? He told him, number one, if you want to choke yourself, then hang yourself from a tall tree. Now, really, you can see he's trying to camouflage what he's telling him. And as the Rashbam points out, that if you want to give a halachic ruling and you want for people to accept it, don't say it in your own name. As great as you might be, that's just the nature of the world. People look at their contemporaries only as contemporaries. The Rabbanim from the previous generation, they're the big Rabbanim. And we have this many times, my friends, that someone quoted an author of a statement that wasn't 100% true because they knew that what they're saying is the halacha. So he's telling him, Rishus, that if you feel that's how some learn, that people won't accept a halachic ruling, then hang it, quote it, b'shem, up a big tree. Even if they didn't necessarily say it, or to your knowledge, they didn't necessarily say it, because it's emes. You know, the Chassam Sofer had this very funny statement. He used to say that if you want to say my Torahs on your name, because my Torahs are emes, just do me one favor. Don't say your Torahs quoting me. That don't do. But the Chassam Sofer was speaking to people like us that we will quote Torahs that are not Torah, the Baba Maises. But he's telling the Rashbi that if you're saying something that you know to be Torah, you can quote me. Quote the great tree. Number two, when you teach your son, is lamdeu b'sefer muga. Make sure that you teach your child from a book that is not corrupted. Now we are so lucky nowadays that we all have Sfarim, and the Sfarim that we have revisions, and we have all of the look at the side. We have the Bach, we have the Museres Hashas. Imagine then, most of it was learned by heart. People had their own notes. Rambam says, if a person learns it wrong the first time when they are a child, it becomes very difficult to learn it right. Very difficult to learn. No, Girsa de Yankasa is a blessing if you had a good Melamed. So he tells them, make sure the children, you teach them every word. And we know how Torah Shabbat Peh is like Chumash, the Mishnah, every word has to be Meduyak B'Yosef, right? Erev Pesachim or Arvei Pesachim. It was Fagam Achloikis, with consequences, with Nafkaminas. And Mahi, the Gemara explains, that Amar Rabbi became Rav Mesharshia, that Bechadeta, he was speaking specifically about a child that's young, that by young people, one mistake, they learned it wrong the first time. Keep them the once it entered the mind, then it entered the mind. They'll always repeat that mistake. Yeah, and number 3, this was all teachings that was taught b'mesiras nefesh in jail, that Ashbi was risking his life. I understand all of these statements are hidden in Azah. It doesn't look like Torah. That's what it sounds like. Everything is like hidden. So just in case it'll be caught, Rabbi Akiva didn't want for the Rashbi to get killed as well. So he says that in the pot that you don't cook in the pot that your friend cooked. Now, what did he mean? Ma'ininu, don't marry a divorcee when her first husband is still alive. Gerusha b'chaye bailon, the Amar Ma'ar, because the master taught us the last line in the Amid that Garush and also Gerusha, that if a man who's a divorcee married a woman who's a divorcee and both of their exes are still living, I'm going to say it by heart. There is a nature that God imbued that once someone passes away, the living forget him. If not, the pain would be too big. That's the whole Ma'aseh with Yaakov Avinu, that he mourned for Yosef Atzadik all of the 22 years, because like Rashi says, like Chazal say, because Yosef was still alive. So like this, it's very important when a couple is together that they should be thinking about each other. And that affects the ruchnius of the child, Tanya Perik Beis. So if, they were married already. So a garush, look at his words, garush and also garusha, there are 4 people in bed, not 2 people in bed. There is the current couple, and each one is also thinking about the prior spouse. But that's only if the prior spouse is still alive. That is one version of what he meant. See, none of this was said explicitly. Now we're trying to extrapolate the hidden messages of Torah that was taught by Rabbi Akiva. The Iboy is saying that this is true even Ba'alman. Obviously, every case is a case. It's a mitzvah to be in marriage. Not everyone has the option. But the concept that this idea to be at least mindful that if you're having a relation with a person that was married to someone previously, or God forbid, the Gemara doesn't have to speak it out, if there is premarital relations, which is forbidden, so then it affects. So then you're being compared to someone else, and goes both ways. The time is running. She'ein kol etzba'os shavos, says the Rashbam, that the Eved, this is the woman thinking about her current husband, comparing him to the prior husband, even if the prior husband already passed on, that Eved Tashmish is not the same. And therefore, that she might have had, I'm saying the Rashbam, more pleasure with the first husband, and she's going to be resentful to the current husband. Okay, weiter. Next, fourth Torah b'mesiras nefesh. Mitzvah v'guf gadol. Gewalt. If you want to do a mitzvah, and you're not on the level of doing it l'shma, you still want to have the shaloi l'shma. And we're speaking about the mitzvah. The mitzvah is giving tzedakah. The greatest tzedakah is to lend money, says the Rambam. The greatest money tzedakah is to give a loan, because that's not only to the poor, it's to the rich. Now, it's pashat late, but in Bava Metzia, when we're going to learn the sugya of ribis, we have to acknowledge that the ribis is a choik. That I cannot charge interest for money is a supra-rational. Rationally, if I have cars, I can rent it out. I get my cars back, and I get money for it. If I have chairs, I can rent out my chairs. I get my chairs back. You have real estate. You get back the principal, and you get profit. Why would money be different? But that's what God said, that if you have money and you give it out, when you get it back, you cannot get back anything more than the money that you gave. And that's even in places where there's inflation, which means that when you get back the money, it became devalued. Now there's ways of going about it. Today we have a more simpler heter iskes. This is really above a Metzia Sugya, but as we learned over there, go to Daf Samach Zayin and Bava Metzia and other areas, that what was accepted and common in the times of the Gemara is what we call Mashkanta de Surah. Mashkanta de Surah means like this: I would lend you money. I would lend you $1,000, but I'm not allowed to say somehow I'm going to get back 1,000 plus. That's ribis. They didn't have an heter iska yet. They didn't make that document yet. So what they did is that then when you lent money, the lender always took a lien. He took a guarantee. He took a mashkin. Take land for a mashkin and say the following: that for the next 10 years, I'm going to eat the produce, supposing that the produce is $100 a year, worth $100 a year. After 10 years, I will get my $1,000 back, and then the land goes back to you. That is an accepted way of paying back a loan, even though we don't know how much produce will be produced every year. And even if it's likely, not certain, likely that the value of every year's produce will be not $100, will be $110, will be $150. Since it's not clear that the lender will get back his money plus, that was accepted. That was called the mashkin that they would enact in the city of Surah. So that's what Rabbi Kiva already is saying, that if you want to do a mitzvah, you want to lend money, but you need back, you want to have a goof gadol, you want your body to grow, you want the gashmias to grow, then you're allowed to do it. And what happens is oichel peres, because he's explaining mashkanta the Sudan code. You take the property as the lien, the lender eats the peres, he eats the usufruct. Now, guys, we have to change the gears. It says veloy. It's an olive, but the many veloy sachar. The borrower also benefits. You're not wronging the borrower. The borrower needs $1,000 now. Even if over a long period of time he's going to pay back $1,200 or whatever the nidus is, we can't do it directly because God said we can't do it. But Rabbi Kiva was saying that you're not tricking anyone. And that's why today people are willing to pay interest. It's against Hashem's rules because it's worth it for them. Right? They get a bulk of money right away up front. That was 8 to number 4. We have a lot more on this in Bava Metzia. Number 5, mitzvah, the guf tahar. If you want to do mitzvahs, the opposite. You want to make sure that all of your bodily needs should not cloud your ruchnius. So the rule is noisa isha, even though v'loy banim. In other words, getting married, living in marriage is good for us because it addresses the bodily needs, even if you already have children. Many people learn more than that b'chlal, even though a person was mekayim through the rule, as we have in the beginning of Even HaEzer, ula arev al Tanach yodecha. It's always a mitzvah to have more children, but living in marriage give you a more pure life. And this is the final instructions that we have from Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva was murdered afterwards. Says the Gemara Vayter. In other words, you want to have a guf tahar, not to be completely removed from the world. Live in marriage. It grounds you. It brings the balance that God wants us to have. The following 4. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, right? Ashkafta that we have in Ksubas. At the end, Kuf Gimel, he told his children, number 1, Al Tader B'Shechansiv. Don't live in the city of Shanchansiv. Don't live. What was the negative traits that people had there? Mishum Delitzane Habo, because they were cynics. Cynicism is the first step down. And when you live among cynics, it rubs off on you. Number 2, don't sit on an Aramean bed. What did Rebbe mean? Many opinions. Number 1, the other people say what he meant was either don't go to sleep the way an Aramean goes to sleep. And an Aramean is tired, they get schlafen. Ayid, you're tired, you say the Shema. Say the Shema before you go to sleep. Guys, we learned a few daf ago how a bracha smucha l'chaverta doesn't need to begin with a baruch. Guys, Elyahu does not begin with baruch. Now, I know that now it's organized in the Siddur by us that we say first Al Natilas Yodayim and we say Asher Yatzeh. So that's a bracha smucha, but it wasn't that way. Elyahu used to be the Moeda'ani. You learned this in brachas. They said that in bed. There was a time that the Ruach Ra was not so strong, and they were allowed to say God's name right after they woke up, before they washed their hands. So why doesn't Elyahu begins Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam? You know what the answer is? Because you said the bracha of Hamapil. Wow. That the bracha of Hamapil, the Baruch Atah Hashem, is the Smucha L'Chaverta. I can't hear Danny, but it's amazing. Anyways, good. That's the Ikka the Amri. Other people say that the lois.
So the fact that you slept the whole night, that doesn't matter? That's still smucha l'chaverta?
Because how long do we sleep? Guys, we're married people. The molostin schlafen. Molostin, they don't let us sleep. Hello.
It's like a little nap.
That's called sleep.
Molostin schlafen.
Molostin schlafen. It's a gewaltig, huh? How they looked at sleep. Like it didn't count. The Ikada Amri, the Leisinsav Geriyusa means don't marry a convert. Now, this is very important. Chevra, that we have to be careful with the words that we use. And the Mishnah says that when you say anything that is derogatory towards a non-Jew, if you say it to a convert that's not 10 generations after conversion, they take offense. So be careful if you marry a convert to genuinely speak positively about everyone. If not, you're going to be hurting your spouse. I know that I can mention that when my father got engaged to my mother was an orphan from her mother. And the Rebbe told my father in Yechidus that he has to be very careful and sensitive to my mother. Because she's a same concept, because the Torah says there's a special oina'as devarim that we have for converts, that we have for widows, that we have for orphans. So be mindful of that. And not everyone has that delicacy that they can refrain any word. You know, it's not about what you intend, it's about what the other person feels. Another version is the Aramois Mamish. No, don't sit in the bed of a Armenian person. This is so geschmack. So let's learn in Rashi, just to know the Rashbam, there's no place. So the Rashbam is where places is. Rashi, the commentator that's more chashuv, always is inside the Gemara. So when the pages get rubbed out, they get rubbed out first. So Rashi, right 9 lines from the top, tells you the story. Beginning of the line, Ikeda Amri, that what he meant was, don't sit on a bed of a non-Jewish woman. Aramis means any non-Jewish woman. Mamish. What happened? That Shahoisa Aramis Achaz Chayavas Limois. There was a woman that owed Rav Papa money. Rav Papa was wealthy. And he lent money. He helped her. He gave her a gamach. Or he sold her merchandise on credit. Then Nichnas Midei Yom B'Yom B'Beis, and he came to collect. Likvah Is. And, you know, she didn't want to be collected from. So Yom Echad, this is what she did. Chankas B'na, she choked her child to death. And she placed the child in the bed. When a papa entered, she tells him, today I can pay you. Sit on the bed until I get the money. And he sat down on the bed. And says the Rashi that Kishabasa, when she came back, she told Rav Papa, you murdered my son. The first blood libel, or maybe the first blood libel that we record over here. So she turned the tables on him to get out of her debt. So from that, we gave an eitzah, be careful. Be careful. You don't know what another person might do to exempt themselves from paying back a loan. Back inside the Gemara. Don't evade taxes. Now, the Rishonim point out, whenever you're living in a society that everyone is taxed equally, then for that, we don't need to have the eitzah, the abad devarim that Tzivah Rabbeinu HaKadosh, then we were stealing. But you should know that mamish until recently, and already beginning in the times of Chazal, even in Babel, there was a Jew tax. There was a unique tax for Jews. And we considered any tax that puts a burden of government on a Jew more than on any other citizen to be illegal, halachically. And al pi halacha, we are allowed to evade taxes that singles out a Yid. Many people complain that from a people, they evade taxes just to know the culture. We're not justifying it. That for thousands of years in Europe, if a Yid would pay tax, they would die of hunger. Jews were not allowed to be doctors. Jews were not allowed to own land. There were so many, and then on top of that, Yid pay more money to the government. So we evaded it. So says Rebbe, even if you don't have to pay these taxes, it's still pay it. It's a toiva, pay it. Because if you're not going to pay it, the government, Dilma, Mashkuchulach, they might find out. And if the government finds out that you did not pay your Jew tax, they'll take everything away. So it's not always about, am I halachically obligated or not? A lot of times it's about hachacham, the simple pshat of Einov B'Roishoi. Number 4, don't stand in front of an ox when he's going out of the marsh, when he's getting up from the water, when he's seeing all the green pasture, when he's seeing all of the fresh fruit, because when he sees a lot, he becomes very aggressive. And this really also alludes to, as the commentators say, that we have to understand better our animal, as we learned above. There are times that his skafia is the way to go. No, say to the animal, no, there are times that we have to have seichel and we have to give in, of course, within the parameters of halacha. Because denying the ox food when it needs food will make the ox completely mishuga and will pay the dear price. And Omar, Rabbi Shmuel, what are we talking about? Not always, but b'shoy shachar u'b'yom nisan, the dark ox, and the yom nisan is when its appetite opens up, right? It gets up, and at the springtime, and there's so much olam haza around you that there are times that we have to manage it by moderation and not by abstinence. Even if an ox is not known to be a goring ox, you never know. Stay away from it 50 amas. But if the shoyr is muad, if we know that this ox has a tendency to be a damaging ox, then respect it. You know how far? Stay away from it. As far as your eye can see. And Tanach made it up that even when even if the head of a bull is in a feeding basket, the bull is eating, run away from it. Go up to the roof. The shadei darga metusach, and throw away the ladder, even though an ox cannot go up a ladder. In other words, distance yourself from a raging bull. So don't put yourself in scenarios where your yetzer hara will be stimulated. Don't do that. And now we're learning some sort of mystical language of the animals. You know, Kabbalah, you can communicate to animals. So here we have a shtickle of it in the Gemara. Rav says like this: that nizha the Torah, the cry of a bull is hein hein, and the way that Rashbam says, if you want to get your bull to move, so speak hein hein. That's the sound. Now maybe hein is yeah, like I just mentioned. In other words, you have to give in a little bit to the ox. Al pi Torah. You say yes, yes, so then the ox will go work for you and not work against you. Nizra the audio. If you have a lion as a yetzer hara, then it's not enough to say yes. Then you have to say this is it. You have to right away address it. The lion is more dangerous. Nizra the gamla, whatever the gamal represents, the gamal sometimes represents the malach hamavis is dada. Dada means also here. Nizra the arbe. Nizra the arbe means that if you have people that you need for them to tug the boat, so now you are speaking not to animals, but you're speaking to people. Don't repeat the same thing twice to a person. That's disrespectful. It's a good klal. To a behema, repeat again the mantra. To people, change approaches. Say this word, say that word, say the other word. This is what you should tell them. Obviously, there are many other meanings over here. Tell people to motivate them to pull the boat. Hilnei, hiya, hila, hiluk, hulya. Here's you have the hulya and the gemara. Amar Abaye says that you should avoid the following. Oil, skin, we'll define that more. Dog, fish, the kois, we'll define all this soon. Cham and hot water, baits and eggs, the kinim lebenim, white lice, kulam, kosher, and ledavar acher. They all are not good if you're trying to stay away from leprosy. Davar acher here means sodas. And the Gemara explains, oil refers to man de gane a mishchad tzala, a person who sleeps on the unfinished skin of a tanner. It's not finished. That can bring about skin ailments. Dog means eating. Don't eat which fish? The shibuta fish. In the days of Nisan, the OU is Gavaldik. They know what the shibuta fish is. They had a whole. They once made a zasu'ud over here, right in LA, and they served all of these fishes that were kosher, obviously, to show the people what these fishes are. Kos. What is kos? Which is not good. So we had an Amad Aleph, Rabbi Kiva say Shabbat Chachoil, but Epis prepares special, and that was the kos of the Harsanah. So I think, since it's not such an expensive food, so it's leftovers. I don't have a long shelf life. Don't eat the leftovers of kasa daharsanam, which is these little fish that's fried in its own oil and flour. That's gonna, God forbid, that can provoke a skin ailment. Soras. Chamim, what does chamim means? One who bathes with very hot water. Chamime de chamime. Darf nicht gehen to that very hot mikvah. What benefit is of that? We'll have Gehenna later. Some people, they go with sugar for that, but it's not healthy for the skin. People that have very, very hot water thrown on them, it's not good. Beitzim, what does that mean? Amazing, listen. Man, the Midrash aklipin. People that step on egg shells, that's something that's not good for, so it can bring a person closer to tzaras. Go figure that. With shoes, without shoes, is this something physical? Is this something mystical? I don't know. Kinim levanim, white lice. So he says like this: man, the machavei levushe, people that wash their clothing in order to eliminate lice, but they did not wait 8 days before they put it back on. And they right away put it on. That's not good, because lice, whether this is hair lice, whether this is skin lice, they have a koyach to rejuvenate themselves. And that trias hamesim, they're good at that. You thought you killed them after you put detergent on them. No, that baryon hanochinim, that they come back to life. So yeah, wash your garments, but if you need garments, but my friend, you don't want to have lice, don't wear it for 8 days. And if you do any of the above, then because these lice, skin lice, body lice, they bring about davar acher. Amar papa, based on the isbei shunra, a house that has a cat, don't enter that house without wearing shoes. Why is that? Because shunra katel lechivya, because cats kill snakes and they eat the snakes. And the isbei bechivya garme katina, you have in the snakes more bones that the cat might have not consumed, and those small bones are going to be on the floor because the cat ate up the snake. The Yosef Ladarma, the Chivya Kare, and if these little bones will enter the bottom of your feet, they won't come out so easy, and the Istakelay. Outdoors, we wear shoes. Indoors, people didn't wear shoes. But if there's a cat in the house, wear shoes. The opposite. That based on the lace by Shunra, that a house that has no cats, a person should not enter behakara, in darkness. My tama, the opposite, because if you don't have a cat, there might be a snake. There might be a snake and it's dark. You won't see the snake, and you'll be bitten by the snake. So a cat is a good thing. A cat is not a good thing. That depends on which version. I want to go back to Baruch, to the walking in between two dogs. My eighth of you is to get a third dog. Maybe it's connected to Zugais. I don't know. Okay, weiter. We learn like this. That there were three things that Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi told Rebbe. Now here we got a problem. Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi was a Talmud of Rebbe. So it doesn't make sense that the Talmud is instructing the Rebbe. Because of that, Rabbeinu Hanano changes the version to Rav, but we have Rebbe. So we'll leave it the way it says. And here in the parentheses, Makash will be the mnemonic. The following three things. Number one, the Mem. Al Ta'as Mum Ba'atzmacha. Don't inflict a wound upon yourself. Says the Gemara, Mahi, what is he talking about? So he says that like the heavy lachdina bahadi tulasa, do not go to litigation against three people. Why is that? The chad habi baldirach v'trei sahade, because they wrongfully will decide to win the din Torah by a baldin, a baldavid. If I'm a litigant, I can't be a witness. I'm negeh b'david. But if I'm going against three people, don't think everyone will be that honest. Don't be naive. They might in court present themselves, only one of them is the baldin, and then the other two will testify in that one's behalf. In other words, some people are innocent, they are so honest, they can't see that other people might not be honest. Be careful. Number two, a very high level of ethics. If you don't have money to purchase something, don't stand near someone else's merchandise. We're not speaking about window shopping. When I go into a store, and I stand and I look at merchandise, other people think that I'm going to buy it. So number one, they're not going to buy it right now. Number two, if I don't buy it, and I don't have money to buy it, I'm not planning to buy it. When I notice that something was looked at and it was rejected, it devalues it. It devalues it.
Is that Gnevas Das?
Genevas das is if I am doing purposefully. Be mindful of this. No, when I go, I should be careful not to stand on merchandise, giving the appearance that I might be buying it because I won't, and something bad will happen to the owner. Now, if you're looking at merchandise, you're looking at all of the lulav before you pick your one, there's nothing wrong with that. You're planning to buy one. Look at your merch, but if you're not planning to buy it, now window shopping is different. Because when I see you looking at my window, I know you're not planning to buy it. You're looking at it. Right. Another Eitzotayva, if one's wife just went to the mikvah, guys, don't worry, this is not Nagana right now. Don't have a relation with her the first night. Now, just to know that Leil Mikvah is a mitzvah. So what does that mean? Before how we keep Talis on the Shpachim, 2 steps back, not 1 step back, 2 steps back. Where if a woman was a nida, then she can have blood all of the 7 days, and as long as the blood stopped at the end, she goes to the mikvah at night, and she's completely tohira muteris labayla. Unlike zivus that demand, if it's a ziva gedoyla shivas nikiyim. So says the Eitz over here that if one's wife is a nida and she saw dam on the day she went to the mikvah, even though Alpi didn't tohira, then she could have gone to the mikvah and her husband can be with her. There's a possibility that since blood was flowing from her today, that the womb didn't close yet, and then she might see dam during Tashmish. Mayan, where's Mayan? Mayan Pasuach. And therefore, I know it's late, let's learn a few more lines. Number 1, don't go outside alone at night. Number 2, don't stand naked in front of a mirror, in front of a candle. Modesty. Don't go into a new bathhouse. Why Shemati Pachas? Because the floor might give in. And over there, the way they heated the bathhouses is that the coals, we had this so many times, were under the boards in the floor. And if those boards would cave in, you would mamash fall into fire. And what does it mean? Wait a first year. It should be Badr Kumenusa, Amar B'Shuv Levi, Ad Yud Beis Chodesh. The time is willing to the person stands unclothed in front of a candle. I didn't have a nichva, he can become epileptic. Then God forbid, the children can be epileptic. A person has a relation with his wife, we're speaking about an infant that's on the same bed, then God forbid, that child might become epileptic. That's only said if the child have a bar shatam. He's more susceptible if he's younger, if he's not a year old. But if he's a year old, don't fear. Furthermore, it's only if the baby's sleeping by near the feet of the bed. But if the child is sleeping, I know it makes sense, he's close, it doesn't matter. This inyanim is al pi kabbalah. If he's near the head of the bed, then leis lamba, then he's not going to become epileptic. And even if he's near the head of the bed, even if he's by the feet of the bed, that he, God forbid, can be affected negatively, only if you did not put your hand on the child, then leis lamba, God willing, to be continued. How many lines do I give out? Big dafim. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Rabbi, so what does that mean? You're supposed to, while the guy's with his wife, he's supposed to put his hand on his child, and that way the child
I don't know if it means right away or if it means right afterwards. I don't know what that means. It's not a get to all of us because today we have cribs, today we have kalim. It's a different world. They slept on a straw. Yeah.
There's some people that have a minute, they call it like co-sleeping. The whole family, they sleep in a bed together.
Co-sleep, even the cribs. I don't know about co-sleeping, but the cribs that are latched onto the bed, it's not called the same bed. It's not the same bed. Same bed means the same bed.
Yeah.
With the help of Hashem, we are learning Pesachim Daf Kuf Yud Gimel Chavah. We are learning the most amazing dafim over here in Shas, all about the esoteric. We are still in Daf Kuf Yud Beis Amud Beis. We are around 10 lines before the bottom of the Amud by the little star, right? Pointing us to brachas, to chulin at the end of the line. We're going to continue to learn about the Eitz of Toivos that were given between our great Chachamim, One of them was that one should not walk alone at night. We're going to be learning about the koichos that were given initially to demons and to evil spirits to roam upon the earth, and how as time went on, that permission, that reshus for them to interact with living beings were diminished, and therefore these behaviors or the precautions that we have to take are also diminished. We're going to learn on Daf Kuf Yud Gimel a series of instructions that was given by Rav to Ravasi, given by Rav to Chia, his son. We're going to have a lot of halachis of derech eretz. We're going to have a great business advice. Chevra will be on Daf Kuf Yud Gimel. We're going to learn about 3 types of people that Hashem has so much nachas from them that every day he proclaims, wow, look at that person. We're going to learn about 3 people that God loves. We're going to have this story that many people borrowed the statement that Tuvia sinned and Zigud gets flogged. That's going to be on Daf Kuf Yud Gimel. We're going to learn about 3 that God hates. And now we already learned this in Brachas, right, from Beruria. Not that God hates the person, God hates the certain behaviors, as we have in Tanya Pedikut. We'll quote that when we learn it. We're going to have the source that you don't invite another person to a bris. You notify them when the bris will happen. All of that will be on Daf Kuf Yud Gimel and a lot more. Chavra, let's learn Daf Kuf Yud Gimel Amud Beis. Again, 10 lines before the bottom of the Amud. The last word in the line, right? One of the 3 instructions that the Rebbe Yossi ben Rabbi Yehuda told the Rebbe, and actually the first one was Al Teitzei Yechidi Balayla. At night, don't walk all by yourself. The Tanya we learned in the Braisa, Lo Yetzi Yechidi Balayla. Oh, but here it changes. Here the Braisa is only speaking about Tuesday night going into Wednesday. That is where there's more power to demons and to evil spirits. And I just want to go back to what we learned on Daf Kuf Yud. Remember Daf Kuf Yud that Adam Chashuv Shani. It's not a contradiction. He was speaking to an Adam Chashuv. Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Yehuda was speaking to Rebbe. He should never go Yechidi because the demons, they're moiser nefesh to hurt. They're mazikin. But stam a person, not Adam Chashuv. We, during the week, it's fine. Other 5 out of the 7. But the 2 nights that there's a greater power to demonic forces, which is countered when you're not by yourself. 2 godly souls against an animal soul. That is Tuesday night and Friday night. And now we go into details with names. Mipnei she'ogras bas machalas. This is the name of the demon. It's a female demon. He, she, ushmoina esrei diba isho malachi chabala and listen, 10,000, 180,000 demons that are demonic forces of destruction that are doing her biddings. Yoitzin, they go out. That's when they go out. They go out where we go out. They go out in the civilized world. And each one, the cholechad, the yechad, yesh le reshus lachabel b'fnei atzmai. Chevra chitas says in the Chukoisan, v'nosati gishmeichem be'itom. Zok Rashi, when is the best time for it to rain? Rashi says in Chumash, the best time for it to rain is Tuesday night and Friday night. Since anyways you shouldn't go out, so it's to our benefit that it should rain then. Oh, now the Gemara tells you a story about this agras, these demons. Kuliyama doesn't mean every day; it means every night. They used to have a lot more power. However, Zimnachad at one time, here's Amaisa. And when she met him, she told him, I want you to know that if not that they announce about you in the heavens, that he's a haru, they're warning me that I should be afraid of you. I should be careful. I should be careful of Rab Chanina ubetoirasai. 2 things. Rab Chanina and in this Torah, then Sakantich, I would have endangered you. So what do you think he did? He says, that I'm cashing out on that. Goys that ani olecha or olayich, female, I decree on you, that you should never be allowed to manifest and to interact with the civilization. Go to where there's no one there anyway. And she pushed back. So she asked him, she pleaded with him, give me a little bit of leeway. So he gave her leeway. This the same demon, Agras Bas Machlas. And she tells him the same Torah that it's not that they would have announced in the heavens, and here we have a source of the name of Abaye, which is really a Rosh Tevis, Asher B'Choy Yerucham Yosem, but he's Zoharu bin Nachmeni. And now we understand he was raised, the stepfather was Rabba Bar Nachmeni. Mikan, that even after a father's passing, don't say his name. That's the way we are Mechabed our parents, which we should even after their passing. So maybe he didn't call him Nachman because that was his father's name, Nachmeni, so he called him Abaye. And if not that, if they would have announced in the heavens to be respectful of Abaye, Nachmeni, and in the Torah, the last line, Havasakante, and Abaye had the same response as Rabbi Chanina ben Doisim. So Omar Lo, right to her. If I'm taka chashiv, then goizrani alaychu. Then I decree upon you, that you should never come to where people are hanging out. If that's the case, if you have two of these great Tanach and Amoida, they're gezeda, tzadik goizer HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayim. But every now and then we see this agras. We means whoever the Gemara was writing that she still is manifesting herself in populated area. She has no shoes, and there's a reason for that. Already they explained that Kuf Yud Gimel. Hani Gaziosa Nino Gavaldi. Gaviosa means that Rashbam, right, says this. The Rashbam says that they were really traveling in untraveled roads. They were not going where people live. However, the Shamti Susya, their horse escaped them. They're only going to get their horse. And Ba'asru Davrei Luhu, they're coming to get the horses back. So that's why every now and then you can meet this Agras Bas Machlas Stam, even though the Gzeda was made, that they should never manifest again. You see, the second time by Abaya, she didn't say, give me some leeway and allow me Tuesday night and Thursday night. In other words, you see from the Gemara that between the times of the Tanoim and the times of the Amoraim, their power was diminished. Whenever you have an opportunity, this is a great fachinach, and we should read the Frierdiker Rebbe's memoirs, the Sechronis. In the second volume, Chevra, there's an amazing story of the Baal Shem of Zamoch. And there was an Avigdor Tuvia. This is my gears of the Yankasa. And Avigdor Tuvia and his wife, they had an inn. And they were big Machnise Oida. Their midah that was not yet good is that they didn't have a Lashon Nikia. They spoke not nice words a lot. And the whole Maisa was is that after they passed away, they didn't have children. So if a distant relative was Yoidish, that inn became possessed with demons, Shagan. And a whole Maisa, how first the galachim of the city, they came and they made these rituals, and so Gardenish geholfen. And finally, it came to Rav Baruch Batlin. Rav Baruch Batlin brought it to Rabbi Yoel, who brought it to the Baal Shem of Zamoch, and he had a din Torah with them. And one of the things he told them was that there's a gezed on you. You can never manifest where people live. And their representative spoke back, and he had an excuse that since the Balabatim, they had no children, and they spoke the Nibul Peh, and every time they spoke Nibul Peh, they created us. So we are the Yarshim. The bottom line is that the Baal Shem got rid of them. Fascinating story. Let's go back in the Gemara. We're going to take out not the Vav,
but not Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, a different Baal Shem.
No. Not only that, if I understand correctly, this I heard from Shmuel Green, that the Baal Shem of the Zamoch is not from the four Baal Shems. That's another dynasty. The Baal Shem of Zamoch. Weiter. Oh, the Baal Shems will come from the Arizal. That's what the Frierdiker Rebbe writes. Talmud of a Talmud of a Talmud of a Talmud. Anyways, come back over here. That loisodru b'masa, don't live in a city, the loitzanif basusya, where the horses don't neigh. Either there are nor horses, or the horses are lemelach, they don't make noise. People don't know that they're horses, nor don't live in a city, the loinavach bakava, where dogs don't bark. Why is that? It can be, again, there's many levels. The pshat is, live in a place where it's safe. A ganef knows that if there's a dog, the dog will protect the owner. A ganef knows that if they manage to steal, but the dog will be megala that they stole, the owner can get on a horse and catch them. So this is a setting that scares away ganavim. They have an alarm system. If you don't live in a city that doesn't have these precautions. Number two, don't live in a city that the head of the city is a doctor. I think this is the counter to what we learned one daf ago. Don't live in a city where the mayor is a Talmud Chacham. He's going to be busy learning. He won't be attending the affairs of the city. Here it's very similar. Rashi writes, the Rashbam writes, one line under the Gemara, don't live in a city where the mayor is a doctor. Because it's the same thing. It's a good thing. He'll be busy healing people. What do you think a doctor is going to do? If someone has an ailment, he's not going to heal him. In the Vila, there are pressing communal needs that he won't be attending to. Next, don't marry two wives. In the times of Chazal, up until Cherem de Rabbeinu Gershon, not that this was advocated, but it was not prohibited. A man could have been married to two women at the same time. So already in the Gemara, he says, don't do that. Why is that? Because they'll both gang up against you. What's the solution? Well, you would say the solution is to marry one, to marry three. Oh, you're already married because you're already married. We're not going to say get divorced. Then marry a third one. Because that's the nature of things. When there's a third one, so then if two will conspire against you, then one will be out to get you. I think we should apply this for people that have businesses. I know in Brazil, the people that I knew in the administrators, never to have one. He said, never have one, because then you become too vulnerable to them. Everything should be two. Everything should be two. Maybe it means have three, if you can afford it. Because you have two, they'll conspire against you. I'm not comparing just a concept to try to apply it in today's and our settings. Omar lei Rav to Rav Kahana. And this is about work ethic. It's going to be work ethic and good business advice and good living advice. It's better to manipulate animal carcasses than to manipulate words. Meaning, say the Rishonim, that our yes should be a yes. Our no should be a no. Turning over words is more degrading than doing degrading work. Do degrading work. If you're going to advocate any work, you should take pride of work, no matter what type of work it is. So it's better for you to be doing what's considered the most degrading profession of dealing with carcasses in public. And they used to turn the carcasses over for whatever reason. Do that, but never change your avart is avart. Another statement. Support yourself by honest work, even if it means doing what is considered the most coarse, the least refined work. And get paid from it. And Veloy Tema, never say Akahana anoch, ben Akoyin, or Begabra Rabba anoch, ben Agresa Mensch, and Vesanyali Milsa, this work is unbecoming for me. Never have that attitude. You should be proud of the work that you do. Weiter. So Leigra, even when you are only going up to the roof, Sheirusach Bahadach, take your food with you. That means even if you're going on a short trip, you're only going to the roof. Say the Laderech. Oh, my mother is into this. People that live in Eretz Yisrael, when they go from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim, right, they eat a whole package of food because they're going on the grocer trip. Doesn't matter how little the trip is, always take food with you. Another statement. If you're living in a city where gourds are so inexpensive that for one zuz you can buy 100 of them, never disrespect food. Don't say it's so cheap. I'll throw this one away, I'll get another one. To say, they should still guard them under the corner of your garment. Never waste food. Loitishta Sama says Rashbam that if there is a medicine for your ailment, do everything you could not to take it. It's a lot better to get healed without taking pills than needing to take Sama. Why? You'll get addicted. That's what the Rashbam writes. 5 lines under the Gemara. And once you get addicted to taking a certain medication, your heart will desire it. And the tafsid noise, even if you're taking a little fuah, obviously if you need it, you need it. But to be careful to understand that medicine can become addictive. Back in the Gemara, don't leap over a brook. Rashbam says, this is connected to what we learned in Brachas, that people that take large strides, they lose some of their eyesight. Large strides, we're speaking al piruchnius, is connected to walking arrogantly. To be so far, even if there's a reason why you're taking a large stride, because you want to jump over a brook, don't do that. Walk modestly. Next, don't extract a tooth. Many people say this is connected to, we were told, if it's true or not, I don't know, that one of the things that Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe is that he should not go to a dentist. We know that the Rebbe did not go to a dentist. And here the Gemara is saying, don't extract the tooth. Many Rishonim explain it, that when a toothache is so painful. So people say, just take the tooth out. So here maybe the Chazal is saying, no, it might get better. And there's a reason why God gave us teeth. We need our teeth. Or al piruchnis, there's something about not pulling out a tooth, and there's something about not going to a dentist, if this is what the Frierdiker Rebbe told the Rebbe. I know that this is not unique to the Rebbe. I know that other great people avoided going to a dentist. Nothing against the dentists over here. Don't provoke a snake, and don't provoke a Aramean. The first white line. Gimel, there are three. Don't provoke them. Be careful. And those are Nachri Katan, a non-Jew that's a minor, the Nachash Katan, a small snake, the Talmud Katan, and a small student. My Tama, because these three, they might become great. You don't know who they are right now. The Malchusayu, their rulership, is Achure Adunayu. Literally means it's behind their ears. The Rashbam says it means that when you do something to someone else, when they're young, you don't know what their future will be. One day they might become big leaders, and they're going to remember what you did to them. And furthermore, the Rashbam says, is that their resentment will grow as they grow. Will grow. So some people, not the three that we mentioned, even if they are upset at you when they're young, their nature is when they get older, they become forgiving. But these three, no, their hatred, their resentment will become bigger the bigger they get. Amalei Rav, to Ivu, his son. Now, Rav was trying to get Ivu to become his Mamala Makaim. Didn't work out. And that's a very good parenting tip. That if you notice that Ivu was not meant to be the Rosh Hashiva and Surah, so then he gave him business advice. As we learned above, the pride of working, that he told the son clearly that I tried to teach you Torah. Of course, Iva was the great. Compared to what Rav wanted, Iva was not growing up to be the new Rosh Hashiva. But it's not going. So if it's not going, so then go into business. And I would like to give you business advice. Number one, he tells him, and this is about having rapid turnover. Rapid turnover is a lot better than taking the risk and holding out and maybe making more profit. He advised against that. He says, when sand is still on your feet, right after you return from a trip, sell right away. Don't say, right now the offer will only give me a 5% profit. I'm going to wait longer. No. You can sell it. Now, the nature of a human being is every soichet feels that way. After you did a sale, I could have sold it for more money. Save it. So sell it quick and feel regret, but sell it quick. And he tells him, Kol mila zabein, yeah, you can sell it and you can regret that you should have held out. He's not telling him not to hold. He's telling him to make a rapid turnover, but at least your feeling of charata is justifiable. But bar mechamron, wine, never ever feel regret that you didn't sell it immediately, which you should everything. The zabein v'loy techari, because wine can become vinegar. In other words, any schleira that's perishable, not only does his advice stand, but he's telling the soichet, don't ever feel regret that you didn't wait and maybe make a bigger profit, because the downside is that you could have lost your principal. Another din, shirei kisach, and only afterwards pesach sakayef or sakach. That means, how does it work? First, open your purse. First, take the money and then give out the merchandise. Get into that habit. Don't give out the merchandise and then get the money. The guy might not pay. Also, you have to give this answer to very honest people. Very honest people are naive because they see the world through their lens. So he's telling his son, you would never steal. People can steal. Take the money and then give the schayr. Another din, kaba ma'ara. This is gemaldik. V'loy kura me'igra. A kur has 180 kavim. That if you have an opportunity that will allow you to work near your house, you have an opportunity that will demand a lot of travel, even if the profit of the business of the travel is 180 times more, stay near your home. It's not business advice, it's life advice. Because the life is not just about making money. Now, sometimes certain couples, it brings the biggest shalom bayis. Everything is different. Sometimes he travels a lot, it's good, but that's the exception. The klal is try to work near your house. Givaldik. Next statement, Tamra b'chaluzach lebeis sudana rohi. That if you have dates in your chaluzach, in your basket, now dates were made into beer. We learned not that long ago that they had a lot of dates involved. So what do you do with dates? You make it into beer. Now, what do you do with dates before you make it into beer? You eat it. So he tells them, don't wait until a lot of dates accumulate for you to take it to the brewer. Because as you're waiting, you're eating it. Even if you have a small amount of dates, already take it to the brewer. Turn it into beer. Beer was something, again, you can say people would drink beer. No, beer was already good for schayra. Every business, the challenge of every business is you look at your bank account and do zest a nice amount of money. That money is to buy schayra. Be careful. The keren. Ba'at kama, how little? No, there has to be a certain amount. Lesser than that, it's not worth it to take it to the brewer. So Rava says, even if you only have 3 saw, which is relatively a very small amount to brew beer, already take 3 saw, and don't say I'll wait until I have more, because in the Vaila you'll be gnashing away on it. Papa, Eloi, that amoy shikra. If I would not have gone into the business of brewing beer, loyatri, I would not have become wealthy. Gavaldik. It was like a bread and butter business. In Portuguese, arroz feijão. It might not have the greatest profit, but you know what? It's gevaldik. There's many upsides, even if you have to sell a lot more to make more money, but we're advocating secure businesses. It's not that much profit. Go ahead.
Large market. A large market. A large
market business, as long as there's profit, they're advocating for that. Not enough profit. Same thing. If I would not have gone into the business of brewing beer, which was something very common, I would not have become wealthy. Not only that, they would call the name of a beer brewer was called Soidana. Why did they call them Soidana? Soidana means asoy, the secret. It's a wonderful secret. It's ironic. It's almost like if it's everyone knows it, it's not a secret. It's a wonderful, it's a good business. It might not bring you a lot of money, but it's good. And it allows you to do gemilas chasadim, because many businesses, your capital is tied up in schayra. The beauty of beer, it's cheap. Everyone buys it. Is that there's Rashbam writes, is that you buy the dates, you make the beer, and you right away get cash. So you don't have credit, which is something that you're vulnerable. You have cash the whole time. And therefore, what's the goal of business? Of doing mitzvahs. You can do gemilas chesed. Other people might make a much larger markup, but their bulk of money is always tied up in schayra. And how can they help another yid when it's tied up in merchandise? You should know, call agav, every bill, even if it's you think from a company that they're good on their bills. You know what? A bill is not cash. These are such good one-liners. Go gavya, but you still have to collect it. You still have to collect it. I think my father with his in Brazil, when you sold something, they would pay you if they would live in 90 days and 120 days. You would daven for them to live. And then after 90 days, they would begin to negotiate with you. Like there was no end to it. So then you would facturiden. I don't know if this is an English word. There was a guns, went to the bank, and it was sugar. No, get cash. You have a bill, you still have to collect it. Kol Ashara also, he says when you sell on credit, maybe he will pay, maybe they won't. Now, many high-ticket items have to be sold on credit because the buyer doesn't have the cash yet. Beer, everyone buys a bottle. There's a cash business. And even when people pay, sometimes it's called bad money. What's bad money? When someone owes you $1,000, at least when they pay, they give you the $1,000, has to geld. Sometimes people pay you $10 and they pay you another $15. Every time they give you, they pay it out. So it's good that when you get a small amount of money, most people don't have the discipline to put it away. It's only $10, and they end up eating it all up. Because he's advocating doing something that you can do near your house, even though everyone else is doing it, as long as there's some profit, especially if your money is not tied in merchandise and people pay cash, that's a business from which you become wealthy. Right, Gimel Devarim, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, in the name of Anshe Yerushalayim. I hope Tzvika here. This is so amazing. Oh, now this sounds very cowardly, so this has to be explained. But if you're going out to war, don't go on the front lines. You Yerushalmis. Stay in the back. Stay in the back. Because if the army is fleeing the enemy, Tikanis b'Rishayna. Tikanis b'Rishayna means that when you're fleeing, who will be the soldiers that will run back into the city first? The ones that are in the end of the line. So it sounds very cowardly. The Marsha, I just want to read the Marsha, says that he doesn't understand what it can't mean Kipshutai. Viktsas Kasha, I'm reading the Malchedush Agadas. If it was about don't go on the front because the guys in the front will get killed like Uriah, then he should say, I'll take don't stand al Panei al Muhammad. So the bottom line is that there's a much deeper understanding of what they meant. They're speaking about is there any upside of engaging battle against evil forces? So we learned in the last few daf about there's demons and there's ruchos rois, and we have to be aware of them, and we have to do things. We have to, sometimes when there's no other option, we have to engage with them. It's good to know about these things, but getting rid of demonic forces generally should not be done by a head-on confrontation. That's not wise. I think this is what the Anshe Yerushalayim was saying. When you go out to Ruchni Yazdika wars, the whole ways of Hasidus, ma'at oir doichahar b'choshech. Sometimes you're dealing with evil head-on, many times is very dangerous. Weiter. Next statement. As we learned before in Abba Kiva, here's where Tosfos says, Rabbi Shalman, look inside. That the behoitzoi Shabbos Yom Tovim in Poiches and Loi. So it means spend more because you're not going to lose it anyway. Says Tosfos, Hainu b'shaloi im yesh loi. But if in Eloi, that's Tosfos, and you borrow the money, then you don't have that bracha when it comes to spending money on Shabbos and Yom Tovim. Now,
Rabbi,
people,
using a credit card is not considered borrowing money.
I was about to say that. So, Kevin, many halachic places can say that our lifestyle here in Los Angeles, Tafshan Pei Aleph, is that people live this way. This is like almost the way people live. You're living on credit cards, and no one owns anything in America. You own mortgage. It's all borrowed money. I think that if this is within the norm of the way you live, then it's also okay. Even according to Tosfos, it's considered your money, and therefore God will bless you. That no matter how much, until a limit, it's not even included in the money designated for you on Rosh Hashanah. Next statement. We also had this above on Daf Kuf Yud Beis. They have a mishtadel in Misha Hashom Esachekes Loi. The Yerushalmis understood that. Engage in business with people that have good mazel, and as we learned above, not to become their partner. That also anything. Be around people that you see their mazel is shining. It's contagious in a good way. In the name of Anshe Yerushalayim, number one, al karbe big noise. Don't be accustomed to do private things in your garden where other people can see in. Be modest. And the Rashbam reminds us that the whole story, the Maisa Shahoya was David and Bathsheba. We're not blaming anyone over here. We're just pointing out that the fact that she bathed herself in a location that other people were able to see her, that brought about what it brought about. So to be careful, to be modest. Number two, bitcha bagra, if your daughter is immature, marry off your daughters when you are able. The younger, the better. The moment she's a boigeres, whatever maturity would meet today, even if you have to emancipate your slave, making him into a eligible kosher Jew, and marry her to him, don't look for Geja, don't look for this. The ikar is that we should see to it, especially our daughters, that they should be married off ASAP. And next eitzam, the heavy zor and be aware that there is a potential of misbehavior between your wife and your eldest son-in-law. What is that? My timer. Rabbi Chizah says that there might be a relation between them. Rav Kahana says mishum mamay. Mishum mamay says no, the mother-in-law wants to please the son-in-law, that she might squander a lot of money on him. And the Gemara says they're both right. Ha v'ha isnu. Now the fact is that it was actually Yiddish custom for people when they get married to move in with the in-laws. And different locations have different customs. And there's a lot spoken about this in the Pesachim. In Europe, it was common that your daughter got married to help your daughter and your son-in-law. They moved in with you, especially then that they got married a lot younger. They needed help. So, everything in moderation, everything in the right framing. But here we're having a concept that there is a certain potential of misbehavior between a mother-in-law and the eldest son-in-law. There are three people that they will inherit the world to come. Number one is Hadar Beretz Yisrael, living in the Holy Land. Just that, you'll be Noichel Elam Haba. Number two, when the parents make an effort to raise their children to be enjoying, to be into Talmud Torah. And number three, making Havdalah on wine. Now, I know I mentioned that the Rebbe told many people in letters to make Havdalah dafka on wine, but here, just to read that Ashbam, and the Gemara 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid, it means that you have a Yid that has very little wine. He has enough for Kiddush. He has enough. If he won't drink any more wine on Shabbos, he'll have wine for Havdalah. But on Shabbos, people want to have covered Shabbos. People want to drink more wine. A person who's the Meshayev, Mikidusha la'avdalta, like the Rashbam says at the end of the Amid, that he makes an effort to save his wine on Shabbos for Havdalah, that Yid will be Noichel Elam Haba. And al pi Chasidus, it means that you are leaving the Kiddush to Havdalah, that on Shabbos we're holy. When we make Havdalah, we go into the week. The week doesn't have those same standards. But when we manage to bring from the holiness of Shabbos into the week, that's someone who is min noichli olam haba, because that's the kavana, that's the dina b'tachtoinim, that's the ultimate olam haba, which will be over here. Well, the three people that God proclaims, God announces, wow, look at that person. God is impressed with them every day. Number one, on a single person that lives in a large city, where if he would have wanted to sin, he has availability, he has accessibility, and he doesn't, Hashem is impressed. Imagine how God is impressed from our generations. This is for our schos. No one ever lived in such a time since God made the world. Number two is, if you have a poor person that finds a lost article, he's not stealing. Now, you have to Hashavas Aveda, but he could have justified him keeping it, and he's poor, and he gives it back. Wow. And number three, when a wealthy person really gives tzedakah without looking for cover, God is wowed by it. And as our Rosh always points out, that there are three taivas, and the three taivas is women, money, and honor. And normally, as we'll learn in Amid Beis, that when you're younger, you're chasing women. Then at a certain age, you chase money. And then you chase covet. And we're addressing all three. That when a person is a ravak, he's young and he doesn't sin, that's wow. Honor your money and a hotnish, and he found something already. Or when you have a wealthy person that needs the honor and he's giving tzedakah, bitzina, he could have done it in public, anonymously, God is wowed by it. Now, the Gemara says that the Rav Safra was taka single. And he lived in a metropolis, not like ours, but okay, we're getting somewhere. And and when someone was teaching this statement, Now, quoting a brayso, in front of him and his chaver Rava, Rava then was married. So Rab Safra was very happy to hear that. So how upon of the Rab Safra's face lit up? I'm the Rava. So Rava says, don't be so proud of yourself. Amalei Rava, laugh kid going mad. Nah. This is not referring to you. El kid going Rab Chanina, Rab Oishia. You're living in a metropolis, but you're living in the shtivel. You have no interactions with the real world. Let me tell you what that refers to. That you should know that Rab Chanina and Rab Oishia, to have a ush cafe. Ush cafe means they were shoe makers or shoe fixers or cobblers, shusters in Yiddish, and they had this profession in the Holy Land. And in this business daf, that the greatest of our chachamim, they had professions. And and their store was in an area where Zionis hung out. And and they attended all their clients. They would make shoes or fix the shoes for harlots. And when the Zionis would enter their shops, or really it's in he gave the Zionis, the customers would look at the shopkeepers. But these two tzaddikim, they didn't even look at them. They did not lift their eyes to gaze at them. And the Zionis themselves were so impressed on their kedusha that whenever they needed to take an oath that something is true, so they would swear by something holy. So who was holy for these Zionis? This is how they would swear. That by the life of the holy chachamim of the Holy Land. Three, God loves. Number one is Misha Eino Koyes, someone who doesn't get angry. That's very difficult. Umisha Eino Mishtaker, one who doesn't get drunk. Umisha Eino Maimed Al Midois, of someone who does not insist on his measure, meaning someone who's forgiven. These are the three greatest midos. God loves them. The following three God hates. Number one, disingenuous people. Right? He says and he feels not the same. Number two, if someone knows testimony regarding his fellow, and he doesn't testify in his behalf, he's afraid. If you know testimony that will be to the benefit, you have to testify. It says in the Chumash. And number three, if someone witnesses his friend falling in a sexual sin, and his testimony will have no halachic consequence. He's only saying it because until today, it's like juicy news. You want to shame someone in public, you are megaled their sexual sins. Now, if there is a purpose, someone is being tried for committing adultery and a beis din, there you have to have Adam. Even then, if you know that you're the only one, don't testify. Because stam to shame someone, just l'shem mitzvahs shaming them, is prohibited. And the story is, this is a famous story of Tuvia and Zigut. Tuvia fell, stam in Arayis. And also Zigut, l'chudei, Zigut knew about it, and he came, and he testified in front of Rav Papa. So what do you think Rav Papa did? Rav Papa did not flog the sinner, Tuvia. He flogged Zigut. Not daily Zigut. They gave him rabbinic malchus. So Amar Lei, so Zigut in protest tells Rav Papa, I don't understand. Tuvia is the one that sinned, and Zigut is the one getting flogged. So he tells him, yes, and he quotes a pasuk in Mishpatim that lo yakum eid echad beish. This that you're testifying about has to come from two. The Torah says, you know that. And you're coming by yourself. So why are you doing it? I know why you're doing it. Not because of the halachic reasons. You're coming to give him a bad name. Shame Rabba Almo Kamafkadei. If someone is misbehaving and they are a danger to others, then you're informing the public. That's different. Even if halachically the one testimony might not be enough. But many times these things are being revealed just to shame. That is someone that God hates. Now, just the word sina, just the chavre we learned Tanya. The Alter Rebbe, when he's defining the difference between a tzaddik v'toivloi and a tzaddik v'raloi, tzaddik gomer, tzaddik she'eino gomer, how do you measure that? How much hatred do they have for evil? That's what the Alter Rebbe says. Erech goydel sina. Another thing, we also learned in brachas from Beruria, that hating doesn't have to mean the person, but yitamu hachoitim, yitamu chatoyim v'loi choitim. But here we have strong words that God hates the person or that behavior. Right. Amar Rabbi Shmuel, Bar Rabbi Yitzchak, in the name of Rav, that you should know that mutar l'sanoisai. In other words, although you are prohibited to testify because it will be of no consequence, but when you see another Jew sinning, you are allowed to hate him or to hate their behavior. And let's refer here to Tanya Perek Lamed Beis, how the Alter Rebbe defines. You have this in Shulchan Aruch also, but it's good to learn it from Tanya Lamed Beis because in the framing of that there's a mitzvah of Avos Yisrael to put everything in its right context. But here we're focusing that it's a mitzvah to hate someone who's sinning, or to hate the sin that they're doing, as it says in the Shpatim, that if you see the donkey of your enemy, the Torah calls a yid another yid your enemy. That is etc., etc. So what does it mean, your enemy? Elaim, the second to last narrow line that we're speaking about on non-Jew. No, we have a tradition that pasuk is speaking about a yid. So Ella, we're going to accept that Tana, and it's Chita that we're speaking about a soina, not Yisrael. How can you ever hate a Jew when it says in Parshas Kedoshim, Loisisna es achicha bilvavecha, don't hate your brother in your heart. Elamat must be the Ikasadi David Isura, that there are witnesses that testify that he did a sin. He's not your enemy. He should be everyone. Everyone should hate him. That's the Raya. That's the chet that we're speaking about. And yes, on one hand, you may not tell it to anyone. Stam, you're being Moitza Shemra. But you are what's the lashon? Mutar l'sanoisai. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says more mitzvah l'sanoisai. In other words, we have to understand that tolerance of bad behavior, like everything, just to know the downside of that is that then I can also act badly because it's tolerated. If you
it's hitting them or their actions.
So l'chayda their actions. We're Hasidim. If you want to teach, well, listen, Tanach, it depends. Every case is a case. The teach, listenoi soy, to hate them. Chaver Tanya Perek Lamed Beis. The Alter Rebbe defines clearly. We're speaking about someone that had the same chinuch that you had. We're speaking about someone that you already fulfilled the mitzvah of a chayach techiyah, and you did it properly. There are many preconditions to this. As it says that Yiras Hashem, those who fear God will hate evil. Right. You're not allowed to testify in public, but can the one who observed someone's hate, can that person tell the sinner's teacher? Are you allowed to do that? So the teacher should have that sinner. Let's go, it's all in the positive, because the Talmud is going to feel that the teacher is pushing them away. That will inspire them to do tshuva. Amalei, it depends. If you know, Reuven knows that the teacher will believe Reuven, like hearing it from two witnesses, then he should tell it to him. Because the teacher's knowledge will inspire the Talmud to do tshuva. Let's word it like that. But the Eloi, how do you even know the teacher will believe you? So again, the words of the Gemara is Shem Rabba Alma Kamafkebe. Tanach we learned in the Baraisa that Shloisha Chayim and 3 people, the life is not a life. We're not saying not to be that way. We're saying that it's not a life. Harachmanim, people that are overly compassionate. We're not saying that it affects your life because everything that happens in the world affects you. People that are eagerly angered, that we should avoid. People that are very delicate. So again, I want you to know that Kula Isnabi. Yeah, and I that all of them I have. I'm very compassionate. He said on himself that he gets angry relative to what he was holding himself to the standard too much, and he felt himself to be very delicate. Says the Gemara that there are 3 groups of people that one member of the group naturally hates the other one. And these are the 3. Kalavim. They bark at each other. Tarnagoyim roosters. And Chabarim. The Persians used to be a lot of them. They had a cult that worshipped fire. They were the ones that made it dangerous for Yidden to light the menorah. The whole city we learned in Shabbos was because of the Chabarim. Because during that time of the year until now, all comes from cult, from paganism, is that they like the little bulbs for Yashka. It was because that time of the year they used to worship the fire god.
The fire ones are called the Zoroastrians, Rabbi.
Zoroastrians, and they call them Chabarim. So they have a natural hatred one for the other. And the Yesh Oimrim so do Zionis. The chiddush of all this is that even though they appear to be helping each other, but that's only echad b'peh echad b'leiv. And the Yesh Oimrim, even the Talmidei Chachamim in Bavu, right? They look to be complementing each other, but in their heart of hearts, Gavaldik. Tanach Rabbanim we learn Shloisha, but not in Eretz Yisrael. Shaldik ones, they love everyone. Tanach Rabbanim Shloisha Avim Zed Zed, 3, they love each other, and that is converts and servants and oivim crowds. And Rashbam says they're very humble. So humble people, they have Abbas Yisrael, they love each other. Arba, 4, Ein Hadassah Valtam, the mind cannot tolerate it. No, their behavior is like beyond normal sinful behavior. The Elohim, Dao, someone who's poor and he's haughty. Although if you're poor, at least be humble. Va'ashid, and if someone is wealthy and he really owes money, and he denies that he owes the money, like you if you owe it and you're wealthy, pay it. The Zakein, the knife, an older person that is still into adultery. That's where the Rosh used to teach. Oh, it's that the trees that we learned on Amud Aleph, it's Taivas Nashim, Taivas Mammon, and Taivas Kavod. So if you have a altar person, you should be busy running after Kavod. You're still running after Nashim. That's already beyond the norm. So you have communal leaders, and a communal leader, instead of him being a Rahmanim, which he should be, and he should be humble, and he understands the needs of the community. So sometimes he has to impose himself, because if you don't assert yourself, you won't be able to lead in certain scenarios. But it's normal that someone who is a communal leader should be very humble and should be more understanding of other people, and therefore should be less imposing over the others. And if he does so for no reason at all, that's beyond the norm. The Yesh Oimrim, another type of behavior that the mind cannot tolerate is if someone divorces his wife, he remarries her, he divorces her again, and Nachamol, he remarries her, and again he divorces her. Like Genuk Shain, make up your mind. And then he take. I went through the bad order. He divorces her once, marries her again, divorces her twice. When he marries her again, you say, what is this guy doing? What are they doing over here? However, that's only mentioned by the Yesh Oimrim. Why didn't the Tanakh speak about that? The Tanakh says that sometimes there are reasons for that. A guy divorces his wife, he had no idea how much a divorce costs after he divorces her. So he can't pay, he marries her back. So then that's it, we understand at least why he's doing it. The Ksubas and Meruba. Or a man divorces his wife and he had no idea how the divorce would be detrimental to the kids. He marries her back, he can't live with her, so he divorces her again. But at least we can understand why he's going back and forth. They are opposing koiches, pulling him in opposite directions. Next, Canaan instructed his children with the following. Now, it doesn't mean Rashbam says that he told it to his children. It means that if you see anyone with these 5 character traits, they have with them their descendants, whether it is biological, whether it is beruchnius, right? Ibun Risham is from, God forbid, from Canaanites. Number one is there are certain behaviors that if you don't have an agreement amongst the group, you won't get away with it. Bad behaviors. So there are people that are unified in order to be able to do terrible things. That can only be done if one covers the other. So he told his children, love one the other, right? But in order to love theft, people are going to uncover thievery. But if you have this agreement that thieves cannot report on each other, so they have love for each other for bad, that's terrible. Or promiscuity. People will find out. You have to have people that cover for you. So they cover for each other. We have unity. That's a Canaanite unity. Or rebel against your masters. One will inform on the other. No, for that they love each other. The Alta Dabroem is lie, but the truth will come out. They covered for each other. In other words, this is as Amida, that the virtue of loving each other is the greatest virtue in the world, and they used it for all the bad midos. Next, there's 6 things said about a horse. And this l'chayda goes about our Yetzer Hara, the horse Yetzer Hara. Number 1 is Oivas Hazanos. It loves lewdness. Number 2, it loves war. Number 3, it's arrogant. Next, Umoyes es Hashena, it detests to sleep. It's filled with energy that is directed to not good before we work with it.
Ellie, can you mute yourself, please, Ellie? Sorry.
It eats a lot. It excretes little. Klipa. The Yeshoimrim that Af Mevakesh Lahagis Balav Amulchama. The Rishonim say that when it's at war, its desire for Znus is more than war. So when it's engaging in battle, if the enemy has upside down attractive female horse, it's going to go for the female, even if it's putting its master in danger. People that run after Znus, they do that to themselves. They mamish ruin their whole lives. Afer, Shisha, 6 are Menudim Lashamayim. They are excommunicated by the heavens. The Elohim. Yehudi she'ein lo isha. A Jew that has no wife. Now, obviously, it means by choice. If a person is trying, that's something else. But if a person chooses a lifestyle not to be in marriage, he's excommunicated in the heavens. Or a person who has a wife and he chooses not to have children. Not, God forbid, a Yid Nebuch is trying and they have this biggest of neshamot, that's something else. This is by choice. Or whoever has children and they choose not to educate them with Talmud Torah. And now we're going to higher levels. A person is not constantly surrounded by mitzvahs. And a person who withholds shoes from his feet. When you go out in the world, you get into the world. You don't stay above the world abyssal. And if someone was invited to go to a Sa'udas mitzvah like a bris, and he does not come, that's not a good thing. That is the source that when you make a Sa'udas mitzvah, inform people. Don't invite people, because then if they don't come, it's going to hurt them in beruchnis. In the name of Rabbi Yosi Ish Hoitzel, like the leader of Hoitzel. Oh, let's start with the first. And how do we know she'ein she'yalam big Chaldean? Chaldean means stargazers. Where did we have this guy Shabbos? This last daf, the second to last daf. Right, Nachman by Yitzchak's mother, when she was pregnant, she bumped into a stargazer, and he told her, "Your son, I see in the stars, will have a tendency to be a thief," and that's why she made sure that he always wears a yarmulke. So the Gemara is saying, don't consult astrologers. Why? Because it says in Shoiftim, Tamim Tia Im Hashem Elokecha. As Rashi writes in Chumash, this is our Gemara, that we should accept the future in the hands of God. We will deal with it when it happens. Don't look to know the future. Meaning, don't look for astrologers that ever said, what's the mice in Shabbos? You look in the Gemara there, it's not that she went to an astrologer. An astrologer offered information. Some of these people have a koyach to have foresight. So when you hear that information, then she's allowed to use it. She can use that info. So when an astrologer told her that this and that will be about your child, okay. But just because certain people have a koyach to have a glimpse into the future, it doesn't mean that we should look for them. Bitmimusdik means accept from God what happens. We should use conventional means, but we should not tap into the esoteric when it comes to future knowledge. Yes, we had a Urim V'Tumim. Yes, we have a Navi, but over there, God will only inform to us through the Navi information that we should take and know. Masha'enkin, when you go to an astrologer, it's so disconnected from God, so then they'll give us info that is not ideally, it was not in Hashem's plan A for us to know that. A lot more to be continued. Wow, how great is that?
Give Valdik.
Valdik is that. Great.